Welcome. Welcome to the ninth text in the second chapter of Pirkei Avot, following on the heels of yesterday's text in which we saw that Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai received whatever, maybe a mantle of leadership, unclear, from Hillel and Shammai. We then go on to talking about his 5 students. We read or heard of how he briefly described each of these 5. We get a little bit more of his interaction with these 5 students of his. We have 2 general sections in this text, the first of which is Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai said unto these 5 students of his, "Go forth and observe which is the right way to which a person should cleave." Each of them gives a brief answer. Rabbi Eliezer says, "A good eye." Rabbi Yoshua says, "A good companion." Rabbi Yossi says, "A good neighbor." Rabbi Shimon says, "Foresight." And Rabbi Elazar said, "A good heart." So we have a good eye, a good friend, a good neighbor, foresight, and a good heart. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai says to them, "I prefer the words of Elazar ben Arach, for in his words, your words are included." So the way that Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai understands this good heart as somehow overall encompassing a good eye, a good companion, a good neighbor, and foresight. I think the Hebrew it's actually Ayin Tova. Ayin Tova, Haroa es hanolad. That's actually the Hebrew, one who sees what's going to happen, so a foresight. So it's an interesting perspective, okay? Now we go on to the second section. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai said unto these 5 students, "Go forth and observe what is the evil way that a person should avoid." Okay? What should a person distance themselves from? Each of them gives a brief answer. Rabbi Eliezer says, an evil eye. Rabbi Yoshua says, an evil companion. Rabbi Yossi says, an evil neighbor. Which, by the way, up until this point, which are really just the inverse of their answers to the first question. What should they connect with and what should they avoid? Each of these 3 rabbis, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua, and Rabbi Yossi, all say the exact opposite. A good and now a bad. Okay, up until this point, it's been the same. Rabbi Shimon, however, who had previously said one who sees what it will be the consequences down the road for one's actions, he says, and this is something to avoid, one who borrows and does not repay, for he that borrows from someone is as one who borrows from God, blessed be he, as it is said, quoting from Psalms 37, "The wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous deal graciously and give." So, interesting, because he talked about one who sees their consequences for what one should be doing, and here he's saying not the opposite, something totally different, just not repaying people back for what they have borrowed. And then Rabbi Elazar says, an evil heart, which is the inverse. So really, 4 out of these 5 offer, instead of saying Ayin Tova, Ayin Ra, a bad this or a bad that, versus what we had seen their answers to the first question, a good this or a good that, with the one exception of Rabbi Shimon. Unsurprisingly, you can see where we're going with this, because just as he had responded to the answers of his 5 students, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai then concludes, "I prefer the words of Elazar ben Arach, for in your words, for in his words, your words are included." Basically, once again, this good heart, or here, an evil heart, encompasses all of these answers, whether it's an evil eye, an evil companion, an evil neighbor, or one who doesn't repay back what they have borrowed. So, interesting. Now, if we were to connect this back to the previous text, if you remember, we had seen that Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai said if all the sages of Israel were on one scale, Rabbi Eliezer would be somehow better or more knowledgeable or more wise than all the others. But we had the alternative opinion from Abba Shaul, who quoted from Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai's name that actually it was Rabbi Elazar ben Arach who would outweigh and tip the scales. Here it would be more like what Abba Shaul had quoted from Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai's name, that Rabbi Elazar ben Arach is somehow the most wise out of these 5. Really interesting. But yeah, good eye, so a good heart, a good neighbor, good companion, good eye, foresight. These are the things that one should seek to connect with. Now, as to what even are they? A good eye? I don't know. I guess evaluating things, having a a good sense of discernment with one's visual powers. Now, as far as Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Yossi's answers of a good companion and a good neighbor versus a bad companion and a bad neighbor, it seems the people out with whom we hang, or the people that we associate ourselves with, can influence and affect our actions and our behaviors, what we say, what we think, even in subtle ways. So that these actually make sense for me, Rabbis Yehoshua and Yossi. It's interesting, Rabbi Shimon's answer about one who sees the consequences of their actions, which is that's a good thing. May not be the best. It's certainly included, right? Ultimately, that's how Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai understands all of these to be included within Rabbi Elazar's. I think the most shocking aspect of all of this is Rabbi Shimon's answer as to what you should avoid of not repaying loans, which is interesting. I mean, there's so much more, and it's so very specific. All the other things are a little bit more inclusive and more expansive. But ultimately, what we end up with, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, at least his conclusion is this good heart or a bad heart are things to avoid. Avoid a bad heart and to connect with having a good heart. So, really interesting wisdom being shared in this 9th text in the 2nd chapter of Pirkei Avot. And thank you so much for watching.